Just ahead on American Sunrise, Trump has endorsed Jim Jordan as the next House Speaker. The former president was 50-50 on coming to D.C. amid the speakership fight. Now, though, he's throwing his weight behind the Ohio Republican. We've got the story.
Critics have long said the current commander-in-chief, President Joe Biden, may not be up for the job, but new this morning, assertions that his apparent cognitive decline may have been going on longer than we thought.
Warning you for weeks, and now the House Homeland Security Committee chairman has made it official. Could Chinese spies be entering our country through our broken southern border by the thousands? The answer now on the record, it is yes. A full report just ahead.
And after the ouster of Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, the question now, where does the GOP in Congress go from here? We'll have a prognosis and the game plan and so much more. My goodness, American Sunrise starts right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina, live this Freedom Friday from West Palm Beach. Let's bring in our own David Brody. He's out there holding down the fort in the swamp of Washington, D.C. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Gina. Great to see you in West Palm. Here in D.C., it's actually sunny today, so that's rare because it's typically swampy. But it's always swampy, even if it's sunny, for sure. Terrance, you're in Denver. Hello, good morning. This morning, we're looking at Jim Jordan possibly maybe being Speaker of the House. Could he be the Michael Jordan of the GOP? Terrance?
Well, I'm not so sure he'd be the Michael Jordan since he's a wrestler, but I'll see if I can find some sort of wrestling reference here. Representative Jim Jordan may actually have an advantage in the race for the Speaker of the House this morning. In fact, just a few hours ago, President Trump endorsed the Ohio Republican for the top job in the House and the second in line for the presidency. Trump, taking to Truth Social and writing in part, he is strong on crime, borders, our military and vets, and the Second Amendment. He will be a great Speaker of the House and has my complete and total endorsement. The Trump endorsement comes as the 45th president is reportedly considering a trip to the Capitol and Capitol Hill next week to meet with House Republicans as they hash out differences in advance of a vote on Wednesday to select a new Speaker of the House.
Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen. And how do you...
Well, Hillary Clinton raising some eyebrows this morning with her assertion about Trump supporters and the MAGA movement. You just heard it there. Clinton made that comment during an interview on CNN. She is also calling for backlash against Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz and the 7 other Republicans who voted to boot now former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy out. Quote, at some point, there needs to be a backlash against the control that this small group of extremists have. When you look at the extremists in the House, they certainly don't represent a majority of the country. Somebody has to stand up and say enough, she goes on to say. And the Biden administration is cracking down on immigration this week, leading many on the right to say, why did it take you so long and what else are you going to do? Well, here's the backstory. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is confirming that the U.S. is immediately restarting deportations of Venezuelans who cross the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. It's part of attempts to deal with the record number of recent crossings at the border. Border officials say Venezuelans fleeing economic and political turmoil in their home country make up a large part of the increased numbers. Just this week, the Biden administration also announced that it will continue border wall construction in Texas using money that's left over from the Trump administration. All of this appears to have been precipitated by more than 245,000 migrants crossing into the country this week alone. That's That's a quick check of your headlines. Now let's get back to Dr. Gina and David, as Dr. G has a Bible verse for us.
I do, and it goes like this. Jesus spoke to the people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness because you will have the light that leads to life. And that, of course, is John 8:12, as you know. What an important message this Freedom Friday. And as we go into our weekend, kind of taking a little bit of that light on along with us, right, David?
Yeah, we're going to need as much light as possible in these dark days here in America. And this just in, Gina and Terrance, America has a problem. We have lots of them. It starts right, sadly, at the top. Joe Biden. We know about his mental health. We've been talking about it for a while. The real question is it actually a whole lot worse than we originally thought? I think every day we see that it's just horrific. Take a look at this headline that we saw. This is from Sage Steele, who did an interview with Biden. Quote, he couldn't finish his sentences. Sage Steele discusses sad Biden interview. She was, of course, a former ESPN host. She previously interviewed Joe Biden back in 2021. And during a recent interview with Bill Maher on his podcast called Club Random, Steele recalled during that interview that the president, quote, couldn't finish his sentences and called it the saddest thing. Have a look.
And then I said, oh, so you were a receiver? And he started to explain it. And here's the saddest thing. His voice just trailed off. He said, I was good. And then he went silent and he goes, oh, never mind. No, you're laughing. I thought it was so sad because I realized that's why he was in his basement during the whole election cycle. Right. Because even then, he couldn't finish his sentences. He struggled. So forget about politics. I don't care. I didn't vote for him. However, that made me sad.
Well, from the movie Cool Hand Luke, it looks like we have a failure to communicate clearly with Joe Biden. Let's bring in Mark Lauder, communications director. He knows something about communications, communication director of the American First Policy Institute. Mark, this is really sad to see. And as I was doing some research before the show, I looked, and in February of 2023, the White House medical examiner put out something about Joe Biden's health, specifically about a neurological test. And I want to read that to you exactly. This is what he said specifically. He said that there was not a problem at all. Let me get you the exact quote, but there was not a problem at all when it comes to the neurological exam. And then specifically, he said, as it relates to stroke or Parkinson's, there were no problems. He never mentioned dementia, never mentioned Alzheimer's. Where is the media in all of this? This is serious stuff. It's affecting the country. It's not funny whatsoever, Mark.
Yeah, and it just shows the further disconnect between this administration, the mainstream media, and the American people, whether it's trying to sell Bidenomics as a positive or that this president is not declining in terms of his mental and physical stamina. And aside from a couple of, inside politics, Washington, D.C. swamp newsletters about how, they're using the small stairs and all the steps the White House are taking to keep him from tripping and falling and embarrassing himself, all we have to do is turn on television and we can see it with our own eyes every single day.
But how does this story end? You've been involved in Republican politics for a long time. I personally don't think that Republicans would do this to any of our candidates. I feel like if we had a president that was declining so rapidly and so publicly and so dangerously, right, for America, I feel like Republicans would be the ones calling for him to go, or her. But I think at this point, it's obvious that the Democrats aren't going to do this. But is there a smooth transition away from the place that the Democrats find themselves right now, if you were advising them, Mark?
Well, they're stuck. They're stuck with Joe Biden. There's really nothing they can do about it right now. There's not enough time left in the primary process for another candidate to gear up and to do the groundwork you have to do in those early states, to raise the money you have to do in those early states. They know Kamala Harris is a disaster as not only a vice president, but also as a candidate. She didn't even make it to the first vote in the 2020 cycle, and they know she can't win in a head-to-head matchup with Donald Trump or really any of the Republican candidates. So they can't just passed the baton to her. They're stuck with Joe Biden, and so their only goal right now is to get him across the finish line next November, get him to January 20th. They can try to rehab Kamala Harris after that, but this is pretty much the bed they've made themselves, and now they're stuck lying in it, and I do mean lying literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the thing, Mark. To that end, the actual deadline to get on the ballot on many of these swing states is like in November, December. So, I mean, you're not going to be able to do it at this point. So this idea about Michelle Obama coming in at the last moment, I mean, at some point, like you said, they are stuck. Here's the other thing. The problem here is that the Democrats have a slick, well-oiled machine. They could put an animal, vegetable, or mineral literally in that spot and garner a certain amount of votes. How concerned are you about that Democrat apparatus? Because I'm sorry, Joe Biden, 81 million votes in 2020. Come on. But beyond that, now you're going to tell me in 2024 he's going to win the presidency in that condition? Mark, please.
No, and when you add it on top of the condition, add the policies. I mean, there was a poll that came out yesterday from, I think it was Marquette University, and it was a national poll that showed that Joe Biden is behind by double digits, 24 points to Donald Trump, on who do you trust more to fix the economy, to secure the border, to deal with crime, to lower gas prices, to even foreign policy. Donald Trump was favored over Joe Biden in each of those major categories. And so when you add the obvious decline that we see physically and mentally from the president, along with horrible policy results. I mean, look what's going on in Chicago. Look what's going on in New York. You have Democrats in basically machine-run cities who are revolting against this president and their party because of the illegal immigration crisis and what it's doing to their communities. Now it's up to us to go in and look, I don't need you to put on a MAGA hat today. I need you to vote for something else. If you want lower crime, lower inflation, lower illegal immigration, then vote for something different. You don't have to put the MAGA hat on yet. Just vote.
Yeah, exactly. Wise words from Mark Lauder. Mark, thank you so much for being with us. Coming up, we have more on Hillary Clinton's latest deplorables moment. This one takes the cake.
And then we talked to Tara Dahl, Ben Bergquam also as well, about the Biden border invasion that is somehow even worse than ever. All of that and more coming up on American Sunrise. We're excited to be here. We hope you are too.
extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen. And how do you...
That was Hillary Clinton, like a bad rash that won't go away, calling Trump supporters a MAGA cult and calling for them to be sent to formal deprogramming. David, are you ready for your trip to a MAGA gulag for your deprogramming? I mean, what is going on here? I know people are laughing at this. I can't laugh at this because she is dead serious. And this is some of the scariest language I've ever heard.
Yeah, she is dead serious. I don't want to laugh at it either. I was going to say I booked my Orbitz tickets to this place that she's talking about, the deplatform camp. But here's the thing, or deprogram camp. Yeah, here's the thing. We know, and Terrance and Gina, we know this is not surprising from Hillary, obviously. But here's the sad part. Hillary, pretend it's not Hillary. What if Bill Barr's in that seat? What if Ronna McDaniel is in that seat? What if Mitt Romney, Chris Christie? I can go on. Folks, this isn't just Hillary Clinton. This is about a whole slew of folks who want to deprogram. We kind of get myopic, not we, but on the show, but, we as kind of as a movement kind of get myopic and say Hillary, bad, Hillary, bad. Hold on for a second. This is uniparty stuff. I mean, this is what the anti-Trump faction and beyond that, like I said, the uniparty, Terrance, wants to do. They want to shut you up, MAGA, and it's not just Hillary, it's much larger than that.
And David, I'll just use this to say that this is an entree into human rights abuses. This is the kind of stuff we've seen in China with the Uyghurs. You probably remember, and this is recent. Like, we're not talking about like 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. This is recent. Some of the Uyghurs there, some of the government separatists and other ethnic groups in China were put into called re-education camps, reprogramming camps, basically similar to what Hillary Clinton is talking about here, and we call them human rights abuses. So if we're saying it here in the United States for basically the same thing, this is an entree into a potential human rights abuse.
And why shouldn't we think that? Why shouldn't we? And I don't even just, we are in the age of human rights abuses, right? When we have the highest sex slave trade ever in history, we already have human rights abuses. But what she's getting at is a formal sort of propagandizing, right? Indoctrination, right? And yeah, we have the Uyghurs that is happening to now, but you know what? We have things like that happening right now in our schools.
That's right.
And so let's not forget, they're doing this to our children first. It is time to stand and take a stand. This is why I'm so glad all this is going down in the House. I don't care about any kind of division. The division is already happening. It's time to stand. It really is. And I don't think we have any choice at this point but to continue to stand and to applaud those who are willing to stand on our behalf as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said it's happening now, because we definitely know it's happening now. I mean, whether it be pro-lifers being arrested or it means what's happening on social media, and you just go down the list. It's happening all the time, everywhere. And Gina, Mitt Romney and Terrance, Mitt Romney said something the other day that should scare us all as well. And of course, it shouldn't shock us. But Mitt Romney said, when he talked about retiring from the Senate, and he said that he comes from the smart wing of the GOP from the Republican Party. That's what he said, the smart wing. And then he started to get on the populist and the MAGA crowd and said, they're basically in it just to X, Y, and Z. And then he started to ridicule them. But that's the point here, is that they're doing the us versus them, and they know better. And this is going down a very dangerous path.
Sure, it certainly is.
And what's frightening is that it starts with rhetoric like this, but that sort of rhetoric ultimately leads to violence, it leads to attacks, and it leads to situations like this getting out of control.
100%. Coming up next, there are a large number of Chinese illegals crossing the border tied to the CCP who are suspected communist spies. You won't believe this next report. Tara Dahl brings it to us. That's up next. Stick around.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Phoenix, Arizona here on a Friday morning. Welcome back to American Sunrise, everybody. A disturbing story coming your way in mere moments. We're going to tell you about it. Shockingly, it has to do with immigration. Of course, it has to do with immigration. The House Homeland Security Committee Chief Mark Green with some disturbing information. He says there has been a massive increase of Chinese nationals tied to the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, that have gained access to the U.S. by crossing over the border. It's a story we've been following. We're going to have the latest. First, though, to Denver, Terrance Bates, headline sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
President Trump's lawyers are pushing for the federal election interference case against him to be dismissed, saying that the 45th president is immune from prosecution because any alleged criminal actions were taken in his official office as president. The case being challenged is the one out of Washington, D.C., not the one out of Florida. Mr. Trump is accused of trying to overturn the 2020 election results, which saw him forced out of the White House. The Trump legal team's challenge sets up a legal battle over the scope of presidential power. Courts will now have to decide whether the actions President Trump took on January 6th and the days leading up to it fell within his duties as commander-in-chief. In their motion on Thursday, the president's lawyers argue, quote, the prosecution does not and cannot argue that President Trump's efforts to ensure election integrity and to advocate for the same were outside the scope of his duties. And in other headlines, Elon Musk is in a legal face-off with the Securities and Exchange Commission over the purchase of X, which is the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. The agency is investigating whether Musk violated federal security laws during his purchase of the platform last year. Investigators are also trying to force the billionaire to testify, saying that he agreed to sit for testimony last month, but then never followed through. At issue are alleged violations to purchase disclosure laws. As expected, Musk is fighting back on the very platform that he's being sued over, writing, a comprehensive overhaul of these agencies is sorely needed, along with a commission to take punitive action against those individuals who have abused their regulatory power for personal and political gain. Can't wait for this to happen, he writes. And Speaker of the House candidate Jim Jordan says the border crisis is the number one issue that he and his colleagues on Capitol Hill should be focused on. A record number of migrants have been illegally crossing the border this week, prompting states like Alabama to send hundreds of National Guard troops to the border to help secure it. Thursday, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey committed to sending 275 troops, saying, quote, every state has become a border state under the current policies, and Alabama remains committed to being an integral part of the mission to protect our southern border. However, officials at the border anticipate sending extra troops will only be a Band-Aid for the problem.
But I think this is something that's long-term that we will continue to see for many, many years. And it's just caused because of the destruction and chaos that this administration has allowed. And it's all strategic. The ones that are lining their pockets are the drug cartels. They know where to send the groups, how often to send them, what size to send, and it's all a distraction so they can get their drugs into the country.
House Republicans are demanding funding for border security as part of budget negotiations. They'll get back to that work next week after taking off this week following the vote to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. David, that's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming your way here shortly.
Thanks, Terrance. Appreciate it. Now to that disastrous story along our U.S. southern border. And the alarm is being sounded by the House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mark Green. Have a look at this headline, and this really sums it up. Exclusive, Chinese spies could be using the southern border to get into the U.S., top Republican warns. Now, Green said that there has been a massive increase of Chinese nationals tied to the People's Liberation Army that have gained access to the U.S. by crossing over, of course, the wide open U.S. southern border. According to Green, there have been close to 18,000 Chinese nationals released into the U.S. this year alone. He called it the stupidity of the Biden administration's border policies currently in place. He called them mind-blowing because now Chinese spies could act as saboteurs in the same manner Russian military men established residency in Ukraine before the invasion. So he plans to direct his committee to hold hearings in the future on the threat of Chinese infiltrators using the southern border. Extremely disturbing and sad. The fact that we knew this was coming from the Biden administration. Joining me now, Tara Dahl with us, Real America's Voice contributor. Tara, look, if it's not Chinese spy balloons, if it's not Confucius Institutes, now we've got this going on. Tell me a little bit more about the scope of this, because this is not just a national security issue. It's more. It feels like it's even bigger than that because it's coming from all different areas, not just the southern border, but all across the country in different venues, if you will.
Yeah. Good morning, David. It's good to be with you.
Good morning.
And experts are warning that we need to be prepared for war here on our homeland. And as you mentioned, they're saying that that Chinese President Xi Jinping is using the same template that Putin used before the invasion in Ukraine. Remember the intel reports that came out in January 2022 stating that Russia was sending in these operators into Ukraine, acting as saboteurs prior to the invasion then in February 2022. And they're saying that China is doing the same thing here, sending in these saboteurs coming from the PLA, members of the PLA, into the United States. And experts are saying that they believe that they're coming from a specific unit that are tied to the PLA because they have the same haircuts, they have the same tattoos, they have the same clothing, and they have the same rituals. And so they're saying they believe that they potentially could be coming from the same unit. And what these experts are warning is that they can conduct then attacks when China is going to invade Taiwan. Those saboteurs here in the United States will attack at our military bases, at reservoirs, and at shopping centers.
Yeah, see, I was going to bring up Taiwan because that's where this seems to all be leading. I mean, China's not stupid. This just in. And now we even saw that some of those Chinese nationals were arrested next to U.S. military bases as scuba divers. So clearly we are seeing some of their methods in operation here. But it's the Darien Gap, that Camp Darien Gap area between Colombia and Panama that connects both countries. That seems to be a real haven for all of this. We've reported on this before. I know Ben Berquam has done some great work down there, but it seems like Chinese nationals are going into that specific area on purpose. And that, the way I understand it, I'm looking at the stats, 500,000 are expected. 500,000 illegal immigrants expected to cross over into from that area compared to 250,000 last year. So this is a major problem and a major area that we need to be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And the route that these Chinese nationals are taking is that they fly into Ecuador. And that is because China and Ecuador have an agreement they have for many years. China has given Ecuador billions of dollars in loans and credits. So basically, Ecuador becomes then indebted to China. They are the second largest trading partner with Ecuador. So Chinese nationals do not need a visa. So they fly into Ecuador and then they travel through the Darien Gap. And there is a camp there in the San Vicente in the southern part of Panama, which is right by the Darien Gap. And that is where the 95% of the Chinese that are traveling into the United States through the southern border, they're staying at this camp. And the kicker, Dave, is there's footage that you're showing. This is from Michael Young. He has been, he's down there right now in the Darien Gap, and he took this video of that camp specifically. He calls it the China camp, which is because he says that 95% of the Chinese nationals who are crossing into the United States are staying at that camp specifically. And what is so appalling is that the United States taxpayers are funding these migrant camps all throughout the Darien Gap to expand Safeway passages for these migrants. So instead of deterring, so we know that these Chinese nationals are staying at that camp. And through the UN Refugee Agency, we're funding it. Through the IOM, the U.S. taxpayers are funding it. So that's where our taxpayer dollars are going to allow more migrants. Then that's their plan. That's the plan of the Biden administration, is to expand these Safeway, these passages. So that we know that. So instead of deterring these Chinese from coming in, we are allowing them to come up through the southwest border. And we know that over 150 people that have or terrorists that have been on the terrorist watch list have been apprehended at the southwest border. And it doesn't include the 1.7 million known gotaways. So we don't know where these Chinese nationals are.
Tara Dahl, great information. Thank you so very much. Always great to see you. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you so much. You bet. When we come back, more on our border invasion coverage that you really only see here at Real America's Voice. Look, Ben Berquam has fresh drone footage showing masked men dressed in black illegally crossing our border. Who are these people? Ben is here to tell us. Up next, back in a moment.
Hemsworth as an invincible superhero, but he was hit with a genetic lightning bolt when he tested positive for a gene linked to an increased risk of Alzheimer's, making him 8 to 10 times more likely to develop that disease. But he's not giving up. Chris Hemsworth has an increased risk of Alzheimer's, and he's fighting back. That's what the headline in Men's Health says. Medical specialists told the actor that having the high-risk gene doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get the disease, and there are lifestyle choices that can lower his risk enough to make him as susceptible to the disease as anyone else. These include boosting daily exercise endurance and strength training, getting more sleep, which gives the brain more time to sort of clean up that cellular waste, brushing and flossing your teeth regularly, also fight inflammation, and two more you don't hear that often. Research suggests that spending at least 20 minutes in a sauna 4 times a week can reduce Alzheimer's risk by 65%. Wow, that's a lot. Dialing up the amount of sound around you can help, since studies show your brain withers when you have fewer auditory inputs. If you're losing hearing, consider getting a hearing aid to assist you as soon as you can. Also, remember, we covered last week that smelling things at night, like putting aromatherapy around your bed, can help. For some reason, the sense of smell, keeping it active, helps with Alzheimer's. Everyone knows, though, the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a pandemic or something more mundane like a tick bite. you and your family want to be prepared, that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You know the Wellness Company. We have their great doctors like Peter McCullough on all the time. The Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals, and you can trust them. They have their new medical emergency kits available, and they are the gold standard, keeping your family safe and healthy. Be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin and the Z-Pak. The medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid you in the safe use of all of these life-saving medications. So you can rest assured knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, all on hand to keep you and your family safe from whatever the globalists throw at us next. Go to twc.health/RAB today and give it an order. That's twc.health/RAB. Use the promo code RAB, and that will save you 10%. David, what do you have lined up for us?
Well, we've got the one and only David Zier. We love him. And I tell you, and
love
you
me
look,
some
you're
David
talking
Zier.
about love me. That's the quote of the morning. Love me some David Zier. We need some music to go with that. A little Getty, whatever, the barbecue sauce jingle. Anyhow.
Yes.
All right, yes, we should do that. Let's talk a little bit about how this really hasn't been a very healthy week at all on Capitol Hill. Kevin McCarthy gone. What next for the GOP? David Zier now joining us, the host of Breaking Point. David, we know Jim Jordan wants to be Speaker. We've got Steve Scalise who wants to be Speaker. And right now, the numbers look like each one of those men have about a quarter of the conference behind them. Well, I'm not a big math guy, but the last time I checked, neither one of them right now are getting to 218. How do you think this plays out, David?
The latest polls from the American people show the real story of the state of affairs in Congress. Ballotpedia shows an average of only 20% congressional approval rating from the American people across 6 different polls. And the latest Economist YouGov poll only shows an approval rating of 12%. Statista shows congressional approval ratings in the American public at only 19%, down 9% from 2021. And the fact is, under 9 months of McCarthy, those numbers have not improved at all. They've actually decreased. So Matt Gaetz shows praise for Ro Khanna, the Democrat, for asking for a ban on congressional stock trading, 12-year term limit for Congress, a ban on political donations from lobbyists or PACs. And it's interesting to note that McCarthy has taken the second largest number of lobbyist money in all of Congress, including the Senate, second to Chuck Schumer at about $600,000. Chuck has about $800,000. So listen, people want change. I think another battle is going to ensue here. It looks like the chips are lining up for Jim Jordan. We'll see. But Gaetz went further yesterday and said, not only do we want 12-year term limits for Congress, a ban on congressional stock trading, as Ro Khanna proposed, even though he's a different ideologue, Democrat in California, but change the lobbyist foreign agent registration ban on former members of Congress and have single subject spending bills. And he said he would agree to anything, basically, on the motion to vacate threshold if these things happened. So a lot's going to happen in the next few days. I don't know if they're going to meet their budget deadlines, but something's got to change, right?
Well, for sure. And the Senate's out until October 16th. The deadline, we know, for the funding of the government, November 17th. So things are going to have to move quickly. Let me ask you a little bit about this motion to vacate situation, because, look, let's be honest. McCarthy wanted to be Speaker so bad that he had to negotiate that deal, and he gave one person that ability to vacate the chair, or at least call a vote to vacate the chair. This can't keep on happening to Republicans. It's going to be a mess. What is your sense of that? Because right now, my understanding is there's about 45 or 50 Republicans in the House who say, look, if we're going to go forward, and we're going to go forward with a vote, obviously next week or the week after, we've got to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're voting 15, 20, 25 times and look like fools and clowns out there.
Well, remember, McCarthy conceded on the motion to vacate after the 14th round to get him in. You know, he wins on the 15th round. So maybe it was a mistake for McCarthy to agree to that, but he wouldn't be Speaker right now, maybe. So I think, isn't this a checkmate for Gaetz? Doesn't it put Gaetz in a position to negotiate, maybe get some of these things for reform in Congress? Because I think that's what the American people want here. Hardworking, law-abiding citizens can't wait anymore. We can't go another 14 months until a new president is in office and hope we take the Congress back. We're in an SOS right now. People don't feel like their wallets are being protected, their national security, the border, the economy. It's dire straits right now, and we can't have a de facto infinite spending spree. I think Gates and this maybe part of the caucus will put more pressure to get some more concessions here.
David Zier, great to have you this weekend. Breaking point, I got 10 seconds. What do you got coming up?
Oh, I got Ed Dow talking about the 40% increase in young deaths in a new study from England here, maybe adverse effects from the, vaccines. I've got Joel Gilbert about Michelle Obama's run potentially here. It's going to be great. And I got crime stats from New York, California, and Chicago.
That's great. And you have your brain, which is very, very important because it is phenomenal. You are an encyclopedia. David Zier, appreciate it. Over to Terrance, now in Denver. Terrance.
From the two Davids to the one Terrance, migrants frustrated about waiting in Mexico to enter the United States actually staged a mass crossing late Tuesday, ultimately entering the country illegally. Several of them, actually several hundred illegals, stormed past Mexican authorities, chanting and even cheering in a chaotic scene as they paraded towards the border. You can see it all happening here. They were intent on being admitted through locked gates in the wall. The crossing came just a day after local Mexican media reported that as many as 3,000 immigrants from South America and Central America had arrived in Juarez on freight trains. Real America's Voice correspondent and law and border host and expert Ben Berkram was in El Paso this week as the mayor there says his city is quite literally overwhelmed. Ben joins us now with more. And Ben, put into perspective where we stand right now. We hear historic numbers, but you've seen it. You've been there on the border. Put it all into perspective for us so it makes sense.
Well, to give you an idea, El Paso, just take El Paso as an example. I was actually standing right where that happened the day before that happened, and where those 3,000 came across from the trains. And what's interesting there is that's an area where you have Border Patrol and Texas National Guard, Texas National Guard supposedly stopping people from coming, but I witnessed it all day. All they do is hold them up for a few minutes and then allow them to come through. And so there's nobody stopping people from crossing the border. There's nobody stopping this invasion from happening. And you look at El Paso as an example, they have the largest processing center, I believe, in the country. It is massive. It's acres and acres large. Hundreds of millions of dollars went into creating this processing center. And even with that, where they can hold 7,000 plus people at a time, even with that, they've had to buy up old schools. Moorhead Middle School, they're using as a processing center now. They're using recreation centers as processing centers now. They've had to buy up several hotels in the city of El Paso just to deal with the number of illegals that are coming across. It's hard to quantify. And we're talking, again, hundreds of millions of dollars per day that we're spending on bringing in illegals, processing illegals, and shipping them throughout our country of our tax dollars. We're not only allowing this to happen, the American citizens, taxpayers, are paying for our country to be invaded.
So based on your professional experience, again, I'm asking you because you're there, you're seeing it, you're on the ground. Border Patrol officials say that this week alone, about 245,000 migrants have crossed into this country. Do you think that number is underestimated? It's an underestimate?
245,000 this month is what they're saying, and actually, what the number? Yes, absolutely, it's underestimated. The number that we're hearing is over 270,000 that came through last month. Based on what I'm seeing, again, what I saw out in the desert, it's completely wide open. I've spoke to Border Patrol. They've put all of their resources into these high metro areas. So El Paso, Yuma, San Diego, they've shifted all the resources. So basically, out in the line, out in the middle of these, the majority of the border is pretty much wide open, and the cartels are exploiting it. I witnessed group after group after group lining up, crossing the border, crossing illegally. I'm guessing it's way over 300,000. And the problem is, we really have no idea. It's just a guess at this point. Outside of the people they caught, they have no idea. I mean, they count foot tracks, but that's just a wild guess at best at this point.
It looks like we're looking at some drone video here. And as we're looking at this, I also want to ask you, it appears the Biden administration at least is trying to give the appearance that it's doing something now, going to continue wall construction there in Texas. Are you buying what they're selling, Ben? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway.
No, 100% not. And yes, you're looking at that's exclusive drone footage that we shot while we were down there 2 days ago. That's on the just outside of El Paso, outside Sunland Park, New Mexico, Santa Teresa port of entry. I was less than a mile from the Santa Teresa port of entry when I started seeing these groups crossing over, and put the drone up in the air, and lo and behold, there are group after group after group lined up. They're not only just crossing, it's like an assembly line. You've got the cartel, you got the coyotes on the Mexico side, and they're just shipping them through. And the scariest part is there are some shipping companies just over the wall on the Mexico side, and I actually witnessed cartel lookouts in those facilities looking at me with binoculars, trying to figure out who I was and coordinating all of these efforts. And it's absolutely, it's not getting better. It's only getting worse. And the fact that Mayorkas now is coming out saying, oh, we need a wall in certain areas. Yeah, duh. You've needed a wall for 3 years. That's why President Trump did it. You guys stopped the wall. It's all political. These guys realize they're dying on this issue, and America's dying on this issue, and they have to do something. I don't trust any of it.
Ben Berkman reporting for us this morning. Always good to see you, my friend. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, stay awake, not broke. That's right around the corner.
If you are not in our chat, you are missing out. We have Donna Fiducia in there, Steve Gruber in there, of course David Brody's in there, of course Terrance Bates is in there. We had Zen Master in there, and not to mention all of our great chatters that we love seeing in there every single day. So much fun in there. I hope you all will join us in there. It's time for our Stay Awake, Not Woke segment, sponsored by Beard Vet Coffee, beardvet.com. Use the promo code RAB for your 10% off. I'm actually drinking it right now out of my Beard Vet mug as well. All right, is want to get to our today's woke story. T-Man, cue it up.
Dr. G, all right, here it is. LGBT groups are celebrating the jail sentence given to a Swiss writer for crimes of defamation, discrimination, and incitement to hatred. So here's the headline, folks. Take a look. It's on your screen. Swiss writer sentenced to 60 days in jail for calling journalist a fat lesbian. Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry. All right, let me get it together. Woosah, woosah. The writer and commentator was found guilty of deriding a journalist as a, quote, fat lesbian in a Facebook video 2 years ago. He also said her work as a, quote, queer activist meant that she was, quote, unhinged. Now that he's been sentenced to 2 months behind bars, LGBTQ leaders are calling the ruling, quote, an important moment for justice and rights of LGBTQ people. They're also saying it's a, quote, strong signal that homophobic hatred cannot be tolerated in our society. David and Gina, as we bring you back in here, I guess the question that comes to my mind, but what about free speech, right?
Right. And what about the fact that how would she prefer that? I mean, I thought now we're in the age where fat is a compliment, right? It's even an endearing term now. Like if someone's fat, P-H-A-T, that means they're cool, right? So how don't LGBT, the L, what does that stand for exactly? Oh, lesbian. So fat lesbian is just like a cool chick that's like hip and with it, right? So how in the world did they extrapolate this sentence? I'm dumbfounded watching all of the thought police, I guess, go through their motions, right, David?
Yeah, first of all, I guess if you're a cool fat lesbian, you're a fat lesbian, I'm assuming, number one. But here's the thing, Switzerland, this is why they're always neutral. You know, I don't never want to live in Switzerland. I just never want to live in Switzerland. And by the way, are they going to put someone in jail who calls me a fat Christian right-wing bigot who's unhinged? Are they going to? I mean, which by the way may be true. But the point is that still you're not going to put someone in jail over a Terrance Bates. Inflection noted.
I'm with you. You don't send someone to jail for what one might consider an insult. I hurt your feelings, and now you send me to jail. That's a frightening police state to live in, Dr. G.
That's really is scary times when that's and by the way, aren't they all out there full of this like body positivity thing where fat is supposed to be a good thing now because we're all supposed to be fat? I mean, they're putting heavy people on the cover of magazines.
For the record,
so how
Dr.
is this
G,
even an insult?
In this case, I think it was actually F-A-T, not P-H-A-T, as you showed us. I think it was actually F-A-T in this particular case.
Do we know that, though?
It was F-A-T.
Oh, okay. Well, still, that's still supposed to be body positivity. Still, they're on the cover of magazines now in place of Melania Trump, who should be on the cover of magazines, right? So I'm just really confused about what we can and can't do and say, and by the way, think. But anyway,
gotcha.
You guys.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, Dr. G. We're going to take a quick break, even though I do appreciate your P-H-A-T reference. Fat break here, and then we'll be back.
Yo, that was fat. back to American Sunrise, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I want to do my Indiana accent, but I don't do impersonations. All right, time now for our moment of faith, and this has been really a confusing week on Capitol Hill. Just ask the Republicans, right? There's Washington, D.C., and that's just been a mess this week. Tensions high, there's animosity on both sides of the aisle. So how should we feel and deal with what has been happening? Many people say we should pray for those put in authority over us. What does the rest of the Bible teach Christians about the allegiance that they owe to government, and how does this relate to the overthrow of Speaker McCarthy? Joining me now is our man of the week. He's here with us every week, the Bible history guy, Jim Mosley, and the author, of course, of The Duke of D.C. Jim, thanks for being here, and let's just get right to it. We hear a lot about how we're supposed to have, we have the authorities, and God talks about that in the Bible, about what we're supposed to do. So help us a little bit to navigate these waters. What are Christians to do in terms of obeying those authorities in charge?
Well, I think we should first of all think about how people are reacting. Newt Gingrich even called the Gates and his allies treasonous. Now, that sounds like something George III would have said about George Washington, but I really don't know what all the fuss is about. I mean, the founding fathers of our country were not flaming moderates running around stirring up apathy all over the place. They were revolutionaries, for heaven's sake. So, to me, any day we pull a politician off his pedestal, well, that's a day well spent. I mean, I'd rather have a speaker without a house than a house without a speaker. But let's look at the Bible. The Bible, Paul writes in Romans 13:1 that let every person be subject to the authorities, for all authorities are put there by God. But if we read the whole Bible in context, it shows us that God wants us to be obedient to authorities as long as they are obedient to God. So let's look at a couple of examples of that. We have, for example, a time when an apostle and a prophet both pulled a Matt Gaetz. So when King David had his adulterous affair with Bathsheba and then compounded the sin by arranging for the murder of her faithful husband Uriah, the prophet Nathan came to David and told him a parable. It was a parable about a rich man and a poor man. And the rich man had many, many sheep, and the poor man had just one little ewe lamb that he loved. So the rich man took the poor man's ewe lamb away and cooked it. So Nathan went to David and said, "What should be done with such a man?" And David was furious. He said, "This man deserves to die." And then Nathan said to David, "Yeah, but you are that man." Hit David like a bullet. And David had committed his sin in secret. God said he would expose his punishment in public. And David's first child with Bathsheba died. And it plunged him into a depression, which was almost suicidal. And you take another example. When Peter was visiting the church,
quick, and take us to real quick, Jim. I got about 30 seconds or so. So take us to the Matt Gaetz comparison in that example.
Well, the Matt Gaetz comparison is this. If you think you're in the right, biblically, it's good to stand up and even speak to authorities if it upsets them. If you find out you're wrong, then backtrack and embrace what is right. And if you stand up for what's right and you lose the battle, you fought the good fight.
Very nice. We have so many other biblical examples I know you want to get to, but you know what? Time is money. I got to run, Jim. Jim Mosley, great to see you, sir. Appreciate it. We have another whole hour of American Sunrise, the last hour before the weekend. Woohoo! Back in a moment on American Sunrise.
Coming up on this second hour of American Sunrise, Joe Biden spent decades taking the Amtrak train between Delaware and Washington, D.C. I wonder if he knew then what we know now. It turns out Amtrak hides hefty salaries for thousands of employees while the company hemorrhages millions of your tax dollars. It's an exclusive story we're tracking for you.
As many as 75,000 illegals are living freely in Texas in an area at least 50% bigger than Manhattan. Now a plan to mitigate the migrants. The details ahead.
And less than 2 months after fires destroyed most of Lahaina, Maui residents turn out in force to support the home team and watch them win, not only on the field, but for all who lost so much. It's a story you're only going to see on American Sunrise, and we're going to start the second hour right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. So great to be with you. Let's bring in David Brody in Washington, D.C. Happy Freedom Friday, my good friend.
Freedom Friday. Hey, hey. Also, Makeup Friday. I'm ready to go. I am all
David.
polished and ready to go. Mac Daddy is ready.
Mac Daddy,
Sorry,
the folks in the chat, they just aren't down with the makeup, man. They want you to just cut it out.
But I just have to kind of be me, right? I'm a leftist. I'll do my thing my way. And I don't care what anybody says. Terrance, by the way, I have extra if you need any makeup. I've got some brushes. Terrance in Denver with the headlines. Hello. Hi. How are you?
I'll pass. It's not my color. I think that works.
Control room losing it right now because I know you guys can't hear them because they're here in Palm Beach. But oh my gosh, you brought the house down again, T.
Oh my goodness.
I give up.
All right, back to you with that one. Representative Jim Jordan may have a bit of an advantage this morning in the race for Speaker of the House. Early this morning, President Trump endorsed the Ohio Republican for the top job in the House and, of course, the second in line for the presidency. Taking to Truth Social, Mr. Trump writing in part, he's strong on crime, borders, our military vets, and the Second Amendment. He will be a great Speaker of the House and has my complete and total endorsement. The Trump endorsement comes as the 45th president is reportedly considering a trip to Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill next week to meet with House Republicans as they hash out differences in advance of a vote on Wednesday to select a new Speaker of the House. Speaker of the House candidate Jim Jordan also saying that the border crisis is the #1 issue he and his colleagues on Capitol Hill should be focused on these days. A record number of migrants have been illegally crossing the border this week, prompting states like Alabama to send hundreds of National Guard troops to the border to help secure it. Thursday, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey committed to sending 275 troops, saying, quote, every state has become a border state under the current policies, and Alabama remains committed to being an integral part of the mission to protect our southern border. However, officials at the border anticipate sending extra troops will only be a Band-Aid for the larger problem.
But I think this is something that's long-term that we will continue to see for many, many years. And it's just caused because of the destruction and chaos that this administration has allowed. And it's all strategic. The ones that are lining their pockets are the drug cartels. They know where to send the groups, how often to send them, what size to send, and it's all distractions so they can get their drugs into the country.
House Republicans are demanding funding for border security as part of budget negotiations, which of course are ongoing. They'll get back to that work next week after taking off this week following the vote to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. Students in Pennsylvania helped school board members see the light after they staged a walkout in protest of the board's vote against a measure forcing kids to use bathrooms associated with their biological sex. This week, the board overturned that vote and decided to move forward with only allowing students to use facilities for the birth of their gender. for the gender of their birth, excuse me. It took one board member changing his vote to make this happen. All of this came to a head when a father reported that his daughter had encountered someone that she thought may have been a transgender boy using the girl's bathroom. Students and parents in the Perkiomen Valley School District have been putting pressure on school board members for weeks now to implement the policy, which is known as Policy 720. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now let's get back to David and Dr. Gina. David, I'm sorry, but yeah, you're just not my color. You're beautiful. You look gorgeous as you are, just not my color. By the way, Dr. Gina and I, we wake up like this. I've been saying this for weeks. We wake up like this.
Should I just sit here while you all have a makeup bromance? I mean, I don't really have much to add. I do not have my makeup on set with me, David. That's a you thing. I leave it in the other room, this beautiful dressing room that Zen built for us here. I leave my makeup there, but you have it with you.
I do. What's a security issue? It's not security as in detail. I just like an insecurity issue. I just need to have it all times. I may leave it on for date night tonight with my wife. I don't know. You never know. By the way, God loves me with or without makeup. That's all I just want to say. That's all. That's my Bible verse for today, Gina.
I agree that God does love you with or without makeup, but I think our audience would love you more if you would just leave the makeup. Just stay away from it. Put it down and step away from the makeup, David. Terrance, thank you so much for this. Yes, thank you for those great headlines. You guys, 35 miles north of Houston, one of the biggest housing developments in the country has become one of the most controversial. Colony Ridge, it's called, a sprawl of homes, trailers, and even tents, is home to as many as 75,000 people in an area at least 50% bigger than Manhattan. Wow. A special session of the Texas legislature ordered by Governor Greg Abbott because it claims it is a no-go area, a home to criminals and drug cartels, and a magnet, surprise, surprise, for illegal immigration. Texas's 25 House Republicans have also called for an investigation, and we are now joined by State Representative Nate Schlansline. I'm sure I just messed that up, but we are glad to have you with us, Representative. You can gladly correct me on that if you'd like to. Tell us.
You know what? It's totally fine. I hear it all the time. You did your best, but it's Nate Schlansline. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Well, we appreciate you being with us. And sadly, this is not really a laughing matter. This is something that is very dangerous to the residents of your state. Tell us.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane that we've even come this far. The reality is under our Constitution, the moment that an invasion is declared, we as the state of Texas have the right to defend our Texas border. And so that's exactly what we're doing. And now to find out that there's a community that's living right here within our state where, like you said, up to 75,000 illegal immigrants, or at least, people that have not been checked in on, that all of a sudden we're looking at this, and this is a humanitarian crisis. We just got ranked #1 in human trafficking in the United States here in Texas. This is a problem. This is an issue. And now we have this entire community where shanty houses are being built, or unfinished houses. And really, we see marketing techniques from this LLC, Colony Ridge Land LLC, that's implying, hey, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen, you can go against, state law, and you can come into this community, and we're going to give you a place to live. And this is just wrong. We've got our sheriff that's reaching out for help in Liberty County. We've also got, Texas Public Policy Foundation reports that the number of illegals in this development is in the thousands, headed towards the tens of thousands. And it's time to take action now. And so me and a few other of my colleagues in the state house sent a letter to the governor, lieutenant governor, and our speaker, and just said, hey, we need to take action in the special session right now. Luckily, our governor responded pretty quickly and was like, hey, let's get it done. And so we've got a few direct asks for in legislation.
Well, let's talk about those direct asks. What are they exactly? And what about this developer out there? Harris is his last name. He is saying this is much ado about nothing, which, of course, begs a lot more questions than we have answers at this point. What answers do you specifically want, and what do you want the legislature to specifically do regarding this development?
Well, it's great. The reality is is that that's what we hear so often from the left, is that this is much to do about nothing. That's why, our borders are Kamala Harris, rarely visits the border. This is something that they love to ignore. So our direct acts are really simple. We want to budget money necessary to establish a Department of Public Safety substation to multiply law enforcement presence in the Colony Ridge community. We also wanted this to be added to the call in a special session. In Texas legislature, if it's not added to the call, we can't touch it until our very next legislative session in 2025. So it was pivotal that we did this, considering the fact that our largest border bill, which was HB 20 during the regular session, was killed on a point of order by a Democrat. And that would have actually brought substantial relief to the invasion that's happening at our southern border. And so this was timely. We had to get this done. And I think at the end of the day, people can minimize this all day long. But what we're looking at is over the last 12 months, we've seen over 2.2 million illegal immigrants that we know of cross over the border. Yeah. And let me give you just this glaring stat that
20 seconds or so, but go ahead.
62% were single adults, and now we're looking at 5.6%, which is 123,000 are unaccompanied minors. These are children that are being trafficked through the cartels. This is fentanyl coming up through our streets, and now we've created a whole community to house this nonsense. It's absolutely insane.
Can't we just deport them? Can't we just deport them? That seems like the only answer to me. Anyway,
the answer to your question is we absolutely can.
Yeah. Well, we will have that conversation next time for sure. Representative, appreciate it. Gotta go. Yeah, that was great stuff. We're up against a break. When we come back, Kari Lake has a big announcement coming. Wonder what that could be. We have a sneak peek of what it is.
Yep. And later, Amtrak busted for covering up the outrageous salaries of employees and execs at the federally owned company. You may want to rethink your career goals after you hear how much money, how much bank you can make at Amtrak. All of that and more. Back in a moment. segment sponsored by Sea of Mud. That's seaofmud.com. Use promo code RAV1776 for your 15% off. Buying stuff for Christmas or whatever holidays you have coming up. They have shirts, they have knives, they have drinkware, swimwear, jewelry. There's no way you can't do some of your Christmas shopping right here at seaofmud.com. Terrance, what do you see lurking in the swamp this morning?
Well, Dr. G, swamp dwellers everywhere getting desperate for any alternative to the Biden administration. That's the reason for this recent headline, or recent headlines like this one here. Support for third U.S. political party up to 63%. There's a new Gallup poll that finds 63% of U.S. adults currently feel the government just doesn't, quote, quote, such a poor job of representing the American people that, quote, a third major party is needed. So, this all represents a 7 percentage point increase from a year ago, and it's the highest since Gallup first asked the question back in 2003. The poll was conducted from September 1st to the 23rd of this year. No coincidence, though, that we saw this headline on September 24th. Yeah, Biden disapproval rating hits highest mark of presidency, so says the poll. With the new momentum of the investigations into the family's corruption and the ever-increasing frequency of Biden's age-related blunders, we don't expect to see this data change in his favor anytime soon. And David and Gina, as we bring you back in, Gina, are you at all surprised at these headlines? I mean, it almost seems common sense.
No, but you know what cracks me up as you were talking, Terrance? I was thinking about, I'm seeing all over corporate media, oh, but this could take numbers away from Trump, too. You know, it's not just going to take numbers away from the dip. But then on the same exact channels, they're saying, oh, but, you know, MAGA is a cult. They'll never vote against Trump. So which is it? Because you can't have it both ways. Like, I love the way they present their headlines so dishonestly that they actually crash into one another. It's remarkable, isn't it, David?
Yeah, it is. And Gina, here's the thing. When we're talking about third political parties as it relates to in this election, yeah, there's going to be problems for Biden with Cornel West running and possibly Joe Manchin in the No Labels party. But historically, with third parties. Oh, and Kennedy. Sorry, that's exactly right. Yeah. How did I forget? Sorry, did I bury the lead? Right. But, you know, historically, to have three political parties in this country, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, we know in 1800, we know it started with the Democrat Republicans and the Federalists. And then, of course, the Federalists went away and that morphed into the Democrats and the Whigs. And now we have the Democrats and the Republicans. So it's very difficult. But I will just say this. What's interesting here is that the reason those numbers are so high about people wanting a third political party is because this has been building for quite some time in terms of a We the People movement in this country. And we saw it, honestly, populist-wise, with Pat Buchanan back in the day. Yep. We saw some of that with Ross Perot. And then Donald Trump became the 8.2 earthquake that, they're still crying about on the left.
Well, and so, Bernie. But they buried Bernie.
Gina.
Yeah.
No, David, I've got a quick question for you, though, because you've got an interesting perspective. But is MAGA, to some degree, almost a third political party now, pushing back against the uniparty Republicans and those rhinos?
Well, they're an air quote third political party. The problem is, to be a political party, you literally have to have a couple things. One, numbers. Two, organization. Three, a strategy. And the MAGA is so organic that you can't necessarily make it an official political party, obviously. Yeah. So
okay, interesting. Go ahead, Dr. G. Last word.
Yeah, well, I think it is interesting. The two-party political system, people always want to start these third parties. They do take votes. They siphon votes. There's no question about it. But actually having a third party rise up, there's not a very big chance of that just because of the way the inner workings is there. I don't have time to explain it, but the inner workings of our political system, it just really won't happen. But they do siphon, and they do siphon effectively.
Yes.
Make America great again. Just follow the movement. We'll leave it there. We're back in a moment. French fries. Turns out French fries are apparently an economic indicator these days. It's called the fry attachment rate. Yeah, I'm being dead serious here, folks. Here's the crinkle to the story. Analysts say that consumers are still ordering a side of fries with their meals at above pre-pandemic rates. That could actually indicate consumer resiliency even as inflation continues to pinch pocketbooks and amid fears of a recession. Economists say when consumers feel financial pressure, the natural reaction is typically to cut back and to trade down to cheaper brands. However, the global frozen potato industry continues to have solid supply and demand, which analysts say, based on the fry attachment rate, actually forecasts some economic stability for consumers. And also, just in this morning, switching from French fries to actual jobs, the nation's employers added some 336,000 jobs in September. It's an unexpectedly robust gain, and it suggests that many companies actually remain confident enough to keep hiring despite the high interest rates that, of course, a lot of people are dealing with and all that. Today's report, which came out from the Labor Department, also shows that hiring last month jumped from a 227,000 increase in August, which, of course, was revised sharply higher. So it looks like the economy is robust and employers are still hiring right now. The latest numbers this morning, again, 336,000 jobs added in September, so says the Labor Department. All right, let's get you back to Dr. Gina and David here this morning. Guys, so much to talk about. It is a busy Friday.
Can we just keep talking about French fries, though?
I was like, yes, I know you guys are going to love this story because I was like, this is an economic indicator, this fry attachment rate. So based on the sales of French fries, people are able to determine how robust, how strong the economy is.
Right.
I must admit, though, Dr. G, I probably have raised the economy myself because I try to get fries every day when I leave home.
I was going to say,
for work.
Let's talk taters for just a minute. I really want to do this. David, what kind of French fries do you prefer? Do you prefer like the crinkle cut, the fat kind? Crinkle. Oh, we're not allowed to say fat, I forgot. But the like the English kind, like the potato kind, like the truffle kind. What's your pleasure?
I'm going with crinkle. I'm straight up a crinkle guy. I'm a crinkle. Chris Crinkle. That's me. That's me.
Terrance, what about you?
I'm hate to say this, but I'm a McDonald's French fry guy. I love McDonald's French fries.
That's fine. That's no shame in that.
But I won't turn down any. I've never met a fry that I wasn't in love with. So there's that. Thanks, Terrance, for that story. Now to a story that will really make your day, and it comes in the wake of the tragedy, unfortunately, of the Maui fires. But take a look at this headline. Lahaina's football team delivers a big win and a heavy dose of healing. Wearing red T-shirts and baseball caps, thousands of fans and fire survivors packed Maui's War Memorial Stadium for Lahaina Luna High School's first game of the season. Less than 2 months after the fires destroyed most of Lahaina, killing at least 97 and displacing thousands, Maui residents turned out in force to support the home team and to watch them win. A win not only on the field, but for all who lost so much in those horrible fires. Teva Loft was one of the students who was a victim of the fires, but was also victorious on the football field, and he joins us now. Welcome to the show. Tell us what this meant for you.
This meant so much to me, man. It's like just coming, seeing the community together as one, and it was more than football for sure. And
well, you mentioned.
So special.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You said it was more than football. Explain that to our audience a little bit, because life and sports very much intersect, and this is a good case of that. Why was this football game so important to the community specifically? What was it about the sports aspect to this?
It just gave the community a little bit of hope in this time of like tragedy, because it was just hard for everyone coming.
And tell us about what you lost in all of these in this horrible event.
At mom's house in central Lahaina in Waiikuli, it got burned down to the ground.
And are you able to rebuild?
I'm not sure yet, but I think they're getting in the process of rebuilding, but I'm staying in Napili right now, which is north of Lahaina.
We understand that more than half of the team had some sort of was affected in terms of either losing a home or an apartment in the fire. What has this been like internally for the team specifically?
It's been really like a good mental break to get away from it all, just like a distraction, really.
And how are people dealing? How are they coping? Are there counselors on the ground? We heard a lot at first about how government help that was supposed to be there wasn't there. Give us just the upshot.
Yeah, there's actually plenty of coaches to talk to. Like my offensive lineman coach was willing to talk to us about what we were feeling like and stuff. It was really good for us.
And how are you doing at this point?
I'm doing okay. I'm been kind of healing, and it's been okay with my family and stuff.
Well, Teva, what's been the hardest part for you? You say you're healing. Obviously this has been tough for the whole community. What about personally for you? What has been the hardest part of all of this?
The hardest part is just seeing my hometown like this, man. It's like it's all gone. It just feels unreal to me, honestly.
And do you feel like it's something that you have some resolution on in terms of do you feel like you kind of know where to go from here at this point?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it'll just make me stronger as a young man. It'll definitely help me in the long run, staying mentally strong and such.
Well, we are all praying for you. This audience is certainly praying for you, Teva, and we thank you so much for being on with us today. Teva Loft, you all are not forgotten in this audience's minds. All right, let's head back out to Terrance in Denver for some headlines, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
It is Friday on Wall Street. They are applauding. The bell is getting ready to sound, and then the markets will be open. There you have it. The bell has sounded, and let's look to see how the markets are faring. The Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500 all recording losses to start. Early trading was a little bit more positive, but we, of course, will see how things fare later on today. All of this also being impacted by the fact that 336,000 jobs were just added. The Labor Department just out with those new numbers. Meantime, Vladimir Putin calling the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance, quote, objective and irreversible. He did so during the recent BRICS summit in South Africa. This as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally agreed to use local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. It's the first shoe to fall. As demand for the dollar weakens, the buying power of the dollar also weakens, and that's why the Birch Gold Group is busier than ever these days. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold held in a tax-sheltered IRA, and you can do so as well simply by texting the word America to the number 989898 for your free information kit on gold. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, the Better Business Bureau can really be who you can count on, as well as the Birch Gold Group, can be who you count on to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries, digital currency, and the central banks themselves, you may want to consider arming yourself with information on how to protect your savings. Do so again by texting the word America to the number 989898 in order to claim your free information kit. You can do so now. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, 2024 is getting saucy. We're going to slop some sauce on that thing. Stick around.
finest. It's red, white, and blue. Gotta get out and try it. Red State Barbecue. Red State Barbecue.
All right, gotta get to a couple of comments in the chat. Never CCP reminds me that it is Laser's birthday in our chat. Happy birthday to you, Laser. Thanks for letting me know, Never CCP. A rainy day likes his fries dipped in blue cheese. I am a fries dipped in mayo person, and Kat in the chat agrees with me on that, and that rhymed. All right, this segment this segment is so set up now for David Brody to make some comment. I can't even get there. But this segment is also sponsored by Red State Barbecue, which might be another good thing to dip your fries in while we're fry dipping, right? RedStateBBQ.com is where you go. Use your promo code RAV10 for 10% off. I want to say that I have actually dipped my fries in their Alabama sauce, and it's very good. It's like their white sauce, and that's very good, almost as good as mayo. But I imagine if you mix their Alabama sauce in with a little bit of mayo, that might just be perfection. Somebody try it, let me know. RedStateBBQ.com, promo code RAV10 for your 10% off. All right, our friend Kari Lake, our good friend Kari Lake, broke news on this show about her plans for her political future. Now, headlines are confirming her plan is set in motion. Go, Kari. Kari filed paperwork to run in Arizona for the Senate, and she is a fierce supporter, close ally of all things MAGA and President Trump. She's expected to officially announce her run at a rally on October 10th. Her entrance into that race, and of course we'll be covering that here on RAV, will likely shake up the contest for the Senate seat held by Senator Kristen Sinema, who switched her party affiliation from Democrat to Independent in December. Kari Lake reportedly met with several GOP senators this week, including Lindsey Graham, John Cornyn, and Ron Johnson. We look forward to seeing how this all plays out. And joining us now is Gateway pundit reporter Jordan Conradson, who has been following the Lake campaign and is a trusted media source for Kari. Those words come directly from Kari to me, and we are honored to have you on today. Jordan, thank you so much for being here. Now, tell us about this announcement. What don't we know?
Gina, thank you for having me on. I'm not sure if there's much we don't know. There's definitely some news coming out after she somewhat made the announcement. She hasn't made the announcement yet, but with the fact that there is candidate filings coming out in the news, she's basically already announced it, except we're just waiting for Tuesday. Interesting. Last night, I was able to talk to Abe Hamadeh at an exclusive interview. He endorsed Kari Lake for Senate in 2024. And also, I saw a pretty great video of Kari Lake going after one of her upcoming Senate opponents in 2024, Democrat Rep. Ruben Gallego. It's going to be one of the most interesting things about this race, in my opinion, is we're going to see something we haven't seen before here in Arizona, which is a three-way Senate race with an independent involved. We're also going to have this no labels party on the ballot. So it's unclear right now if Kyrsten Sinema is going to run as an independent, if she's going to run as no labels, or quite frankly, what no labels is going to do for the Senate. So there's going to be a fourth or...
As the rightful governor of the state of Arizona, as we know Kari actually is, she could have really stopped illegal immigration on the border, and she pledged to, which is the reason why they stole that election from her. As Senator Lake, Jordan, can she be that effective?
Not on the level she would on the local level as a governor, where she can build the wall, be the state's executive to take over that responsibility. However, in the Senate, I do trust that Kari Lake, she's been in Arizona for decades. She knows the issues on the border. She is committed to fighting for it. That was one of the biggest issues on her gubernatorial campaign, was the border and the radical left, Joe Biden, what he's doing, leaving our southern border open. The fact that Katie Hobbs, the Democrats, Chris Mays, who also stole the election, they're not enforcing the law. They don't want to enforce the law. They want to leave that border wide open because it brings them more voters for 2024. And that's another concern we have, is with Democrats in charge. We've got a former cartel attorney running the elections in Arizona. We've got a corrupt attorney general who really hasn't even been a litigator, right? She's never really gone to court. She's not really a real attorney. Real attorney general, at least. And then, of course, our governor is a Soros-funded crook who stole the election, can't put a sentence together, campaigned from the basement, much like Joe Biden. So those are two issues we're looking at in 2024, is the border and election integrity.
Yeah.
We see what they're trying to do to President Trump. We'll see what they try to do to Kari Lake, who has spoken out about the election and had felony charges threatened against her by state officials before.
Yeah, we know they're going to try to steal it. You have to run a side-by-side campaign. You have to run a campaign for Senate, and then they're going to have to run an entire election integrity effort that is going to have to be on basically every single level, right? From lawyers to poll watchers, all the way around. It's going to be interesting. We know you'll be covering it. Jordan, we appreciate your honest work. What an honor to be considered one of the most trusted journalists out there by Kari Lake herself, who I really do hope and pray will be the next senator from Arizona. Thank you for being here. Going now out to Terrance, the T-Man. What do you have for us, Terrance?
Well, it is time for some cowboy logic. We need that in our life.
Yes, we do.
Let's get right. Yes, we do. There you go. Let's get right to Donna Fiducia. She is standing by there in Georgia. There she is, got the cowboy hat on and everything. Donna, good morning.
Good morning, you guys. Wouldn't it be great if we could send some cowboy logic to D.C.? Although, I used to sing songs all the time. My kids would say, is there a song for everything? So I'm thinking, what a difference a day makes, because it's actually 24 or 48 little hours. We've got possibly Trump being speaker and Joe Biden saying that all of MAGA are domestic terrorists. I mean, this Newsweek article is frightening, absolutely frightening. And I should mention that Newsweek, by the way, did go belly up and was bought by a bunch of leftists. So take it for granted what you're reading in Newsweek. But it seems to me, you guys, that the left never lies about what they're doing. They always seem to broadcast what they're going to do next. And this is really scary stuff. And now you have Hillary, she was the first one to say vast right-wing conspiracy. And look how they took that and ran with it. And now we need deprogramming? I mean, really scary stuff. You're talking about half the country.
No, absolutely.
At least.
And Donna, what's so interesting, and you bring up a great point, that Newsweek article basically saying that the FBI is investigating Trump supporters, and now we just hear from Hillary Clinton basically saying that anybody who supports Trump or that MAGA Republicans need to be put into these re-education camps. This is really scary stuff, and this is going beyond rhetoric. This is actually moving towards action to really try to victimize or focus on these MAGA Republicans and people who support Donald Trump.
What happens when you don't teach history, Terrance, huh? I mean, look at the last time we had these camps and deprogramming. And you know what? We saw it starting with the Jan 6ers. These judges, even the jurors, were basically convicting Jan 6ers of what they might have been thinking about. And that's really what's so scary. Well, you didn't go into the Capitol, but you were thinking about an insurrection. And, none of them have been charged with an insurrection. There were no weapons really found there except flagpoles and cans of mace. I mean, if you want to call that weapons, I don't know how many people can overturn the federal government with that. And they basically said, well, if you were going to do an insurrection, you would have done this. And in some cases, they even brought guns into the courtroom and waved them around saying, well, there weren't any guns, but if you had guns, you would have brought these. I mean, this is thought police, and we're seeing it in Trump's trials as well. The judge says, well, I can overturn a jury just because I think that they're wrong.
You're applying logic to all of it. No, absolutely. You're applying logic to all of this. Unfortunately, the government is applying politics to all of this. So let's talk about what you've got coming up on the show this weekend.
Well, speaking of logic, we have the great Lara Logan, one of the few real journalists. We have her on for an entire hour. She has a new series called The Rest of the Story, like Paul Harvey, The Rest of the Story with Lara Logan. And also Mr. Flag Shirt himself, Steve Stern. At age 82, we all want to be like him with that much energy when we're that age, I got to tell you. But he's talking about election integrity, and it still is a huge struggle because the powers that be know they cheated, and they don't want to be caught. That's really, we're seeing it here in Georgia even. They're not changing anything.
And we're so glad you guys are talking about election integrity because there's so much other things happening right now. But even once Congress gets back to work and once some of these lawmakers go back to their home districts, it's an issue they need to continue to focus on, particularly as we move closer to 2024.
Yeah, we're running out of time. We are running out of time because at this point, these changes have to be made. And in some cases, they're being made in the wrong direction very quickly, and you can't go to court in time to stop it. And that's what we're seeing, unfortunately. So Steve Stern's on the cutting edge of that. And we talked to him about it as well.
Don, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this. My producer wants us to talk about Fonnie Willis, but I know that Don was in the chat talking about Culver's French fries. I couldn't resist. Apparently, he is a Culver's French fry guy.
Well, he's from Wisconsin. He's got family in Oshkosh B'gosh and says that's it, Culver's, that's it. And they actually have a Culver's in Noonan, Georgia that we go to quite a bit now because I never had Culver's before. I don't think they have them in the Northeast, being from New Jersey. So, yeah, Culver's is awesome. And they have the curds are great, too.
Gotcha. I get the sense that Don may go there a few times more than you go there. He might take you with him, but he probably makes a couple of side trips every week.
Yes, and double and triple hamburgers or whatever, cheeseburgers.
And that's why I love your husband. He's a guy after my own heart. Donna, always good to see you. Have a great show this week, and we'll see you next week. We, of course, are going to spill some tea when we come back, folks.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off.
Red State Barbecue.
Let's spill some tea.
Let's Spill Some Tea is sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artillerytco.com. That's artillerytco.com. Use promo code RAV for 10% off. Artillery Tea, by the way, is all natural. It's whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. I had some this morning. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned, and it's operated by them as well. A portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. artillerytco.com or artillerytco.com, however you want to put it in. Promo code RAV for 10% off. Dr. G?
This fry debate is just going on, and someone's saying, what are MAGA fries? So I came up with the word that MAGA fries can stand for. It could be mayo, because I like my fries with mayo, and Gina ate them. MAGA fries. I like that. All right, President Biden, a big proponent of Amtrak, which is part of what makes this next headline so disturbing. Exclusive, Amtrak hides hefty salaries of thousands of employees while it hemorrhages millions. New data shows Amtrak paid its 19,000 employees an average salary of $121,000 in the fiscal year 2022. Now, these high salaries were hidden through Amtrak's use of an exemption to the Freedom of Information Act, which permits the government to withhold information on personal privacy grounds. All right. Well, data now shows top executives made between $504,000 and $780,000 into those are like them's Fauci numbers, right? That's what we call it, because he was the highest paid government employee ever, right? But according to the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Amtrak has actually never turned a profit since its establishment in 1971. So what the heck are these people getting paid all this money for? And the company expects to continue losing roughly $1 billion per year. That's leaving taxpayers, you, to cover most of its losses. David, I want to say, can you believe it? But I know you can believe it because we're so used to wasteful government spending.
Yeah, whose bright idea was it to put the government in charge of Amtrak, so to speak? Really?
Yeah.
These
are union employees, aren't they, David? I think they're all unionized, aren't they?
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I'll double check that. I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah.
But look, we really expect the government to turn a profit? When does the government ever turn a profit? Come on. So this is so stupid. Also, they got problems in the Amtrak train stations with crime. There's been talk about illegal immigrants coming over the southern border and using Amtrak trains to get around. So, this whole thing's a debacle. And the thing is, the government, Terrance, the government continues to put more money at problems. This is what they think solves everything, and it doesn't. Look at the war on poverty with LBJ. $25 trillion. $25 trillion starting in 1964 with the war on poverty. And where are we on poverty in America? It went down a little bit in 1964 to 66, and ever since then, it has pretty much been stagnant, and yet we continue to put money after this every single year. It's not about money, it's about hearts of people.
But Terrance, you know what? They have $66 billion in infrastructure funding. Why do they need all this money? And have you ever, by the way, been on the trains here in Florida? They're absolutely stunning without that much money, Terrance.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The infrastructure, there's the money there, but the system just isn't efficient. If you compare our rail system here in the United States to, say, rail systems across all of Europe, we are so far behind in the times, and it's just not efficient. It's easier to fly or drive than to take a train here in this country. And, heck, to get from one end of Florida to the other probably takes you 5 days these days. It's just ridiculous. The system just doesn't work in general.
Yeah, our Brightline trains here, oh my gosh, you get wine and cheese before you ever get on. The tickets are cheap. They're like a first-class luxury airplane on Emirates or something. These things are absolutely gorgeous. And the people are polite.
Well, it'll take you a whole day to get from West Palm to Miami, which you can drive in 35 minutes. It's crazy. Go ahead.
That's right. And the other side of that, on Amtrak, I've taken that Acela train from Washington, D.C. All I have to say is my shoes are a bit sticky. My shoes are sticky when I get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are.
All right. Well, after all of that Amtrak talk, I think we need some sunny side up. Coming up, we'll have your sunny side up segment, or some fries as well. That's all coming up after the break. Stick around, folks.
right, it is time for our Sunny Side Up series, gentlemen. It is Friday, making that point. And we've been talking about fries this whole hour if you missed it. And if you've had a tough week, you may feel stranded or alone as you enter the weekend. But we want to assure you that rescue is not far away, and you're loved, and you're never too far gone to receive the grace of God. Watch as this elderly man clung to a cluster of tree branches after falling 30 yards over the edge of a cliff, while a helicopter crew of first responders found and approached him.
You know, it's interesting how these guys do this type of stuff all the time, saving lives.
Yeah, by the grace of God.
All right, we'll take you back to where we were. All right. We're coming right. Battalion 7, age 30 victims been rescued around TLZ. Keep going forward. Keep on left. Good. Let's go forward 3 or 4 feet. 3 feet forward. 2 feet forward. 1 foot. Touch the ground. 3, 2.
And very safe.
1. Should be touching the ground right about now. Victim and them are on the ground.
Now, according to reports, the San Francisco first responders were initially unable to locate the man after they received the emergency phone call. But as you saw, he still made it to safety. How about that, guys?
Love it.
What a blessing.
Well, and you know, what do you do for a living? Oh, I save lives. I just go out and save lives.
Right,
you know, that's
right.
just wonderful.
Cool work if you can get it. We have a Puppy Friday because everybody loves puppies. And because I promised some in our chat that we'd bring. This is Colby. And aside from puppies and fries, we have some great guests coming up on American Sunrise on Monday. We have Kash Patel, Emerald Robinson, former chief counsel for the House Judiciary Committee during the Clinton impeachment, attorney Julian Epstein, former NSC Deputy Chief of Staff Tara Dahl, historian Craig Shirley, and so much more great weekend programming as well. War Room with Steve Bannon is next. Love you guys. Make it a great day.
See ya.